All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this conversation to transform birth on orgasmic activation. So I want to begin with a story. A few years back, I was at a women's conference. It was a Pleasure CEO conference led by my friend, Christina Morassi, who is another badass woman on the front lines of the feminine revolution. And I was sitting at this experience, and there was a woman up front who was talking about her purpose. And she kind of brushed it over, like really quickly. What's your purpose? Blah, blah, blah. And Christina had her slow down and said, say it like really slowly. And not just say it slowly, but feel it in your body. Like, I want you to feel your expression of your purpose in every cell of your body. And she slowed down and she articulated her purpose. And I witnessed her lips began to ripple, and that ripple moved through her entire body and came down through her womb. And she went into this orgasmic flow that was very downward. It looked like she was giving birth. It was an orgasmic flow that lasted probably over an hour, because we tended to her. Someone called out, "Oh my God, there's an ecstatic birth happening. Sheila, what do we do?" I was like, her body has wisdom. She knows. But it got to the place of like, she was just being supported. You could see tremendous energy flowing through her, tremendous pleasure. And we kind of like held her on the side, and the conference continued. And I followed this woman's story for a while because I was so fascinated by having been privileged enough and to witness her experience. And I found out later that her capacity to open like that orgasmically had actually been activated by the woman you're all here to meet today, Jenny Adams. So Jenny, that was you that activated her, right?
That was me. It was me. So it was amazing.
Yeah. So Jenny's story is pretty wild. I learned about Jenny in a women's community that I was involved in years ago, and I heard about her capacity and how basically she has the capacity to orgasm at will, anywhere, anytime, however long, and can really open into this deep, deep trance state. And this is fascinating to me because in the realm of physical childbirth, a woman's capacity to open to massive energy flow really supports her capacity to open to that in birth. And so you can see like this massive energy flow that happens in childbirth can feel so overwhelming, so intense, so much sensation, so scary if you've never had that experience before, that you start to fight it and resist it. So for me, a big part of the work that I do, the practices that I share over the last 15 years in ecstatic birth with women and their practitioners is, how do you open? How do you allow your body to receive what I call the ever deepening flow of pleasure from within, this like spot where we every single one of us has access to this spot of an ever deepening capacity to feel pleasure, to have pleasure flow through your body, to expand in pleasure. And what's beautiful about this spot, having worked with women in this spot over the last 15 years, is yeah, it's about orgasm. It's about pleasure for sure, but actually it's about so much more. It's about how you show up on this planet. It's about how you express yourself. It's about how you connect to your soul's purpose and bring it into form on this planet. So it really touches every aspect of our lives. And having had the privilege of really being in this space on the forefront of this work, I've met many women who are able to just drop into an orgasm. And that's amazing. And I want every woman to know that that's possible. And some of these women that I've met do it through breath work. Some of them do it through practice. There's so many ways you can train your body in that. And, I have certification in a lot of these different modalities. And I've had beautiful, I could keep you on this line forever with the wild experiences that I've witnessed and felt in my own body. But I know that everyone's time is precious. And so I want to get right to the heart of it, which is Jenny's expression is unlike any I've ever seen. I invited Jenny into my ecstatic birth practitioner community last year after synchronistically, she had reached out to me. I'd kind of been like cyber stalking her for a few years, like, what is she up to with this capacity? What is she doing in the world? And be like, there's nothing here. There's nothing on her Instagram. There's nothing on her Facebook. What's going on? And synchronistically, she reached out to me a few years back to say, hey, Sheila, I'm birthing something really big and I need support. And I know you do ecstatic birth, and I was wondering if you could help me. And thus began like a beautiful relationship, and from their collaboration. So I seduced Jenny into coming into my ecstatic birth practitioner community, doing a masterclass where she showed the practitioners a glimpse, just like a 5-minute glimpse of what's possible in the body of a woman. And I think, as you can see, I could talk about this on and on and on, but I think let's just start right there, Jenny. Rather than me say what I saw, I'm curious. First of all, thank you so much for coming and welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. And I'm wondering if you could just start by telling us all, like, what's it like in your body? Like, what do you feel? What do you experience? Bring us into your magic.
Absolutely. So Sheila, first I want to say, just watching you every time you talk about this, the energy that flows out of you, you're radiant, and it's just a testament to what's possible when you're in these states. What it seems like, what other people are seeing, I'm seing it in you right now. So that's beautiful.
I'm like a kid in a candy shop.
Me too. When these first started, I was just doing a made up full moon ceremony that I'd never done one with the woman that Sheila saw on stage, that when hers was activated for the first time. And these orgasms just started. They started in my pussy, went down my legs, were everywhere, and they're huge, huge. And as soon as they started, I knew my entire life had changed. The second they started, I felt as big as the multiverse. Like I was that big instantaneously. And I knew it was divine feminine energy, the goddess energy flowing out of me the second it started. And I knew it was never, ever going away. And that first one lasted about 10 minutes. So I'm like screaming in ecstasy at louder than I can scream just as a regular human. Gripping onto my carpet with my hands. And then I would go into this I call it cosmic laughter because there's no word for it. The closest thing I could tell you what it sounds like is like that deepness of a maniacal laughter, but it's not maniacal and it's way deeper than that. And so it just switched from these ecstatic screams to maniacal or cosmic laughter, not maniacal, cosmic laughter. And just for that, like everywhere. And then about 10 minutes later, we were dancing around. She was like, was that Kundalini? My friend was. And I was like, I don't know. I've just heard that word like a week ago. I don't know. Even I know it has something to do with orgasmic, but I had been writing in my journal for about 2 or 3 months. My orgasmic birth is imminent. And I had no idea what I was writing. And so when she said, was that Kundalini? I'm like, I don't really know what that is, but I do know this was my orgasmic birth. And so I've also been cyber stalking Sheila for years. We've been circling each other. And about 10 minutes after that first one started, I had another one that was about 25 or 30 minutes long, and I couldn't put my heels on the floor. So I was standing on my toes, and my friend was holding me while I was in this state of ecstasy. And I would then added a third emotion, which I would switch from the screaming and ecstasy to wailing to the laughter, and it would just switch back and forth all the time. And then over the next few months, actually probably at least a year, my skin, every morning when I would wake up, my skin would be undulating. I could watch it undulate. And it felt like I could feel these orgasms about out to here, just energetically, like my body wasn't even moving, but I could feel them. And I would just lay in bed going, oh my goodness, this day is already amazing. They've felt like I can aim them in my body. I learned about 3 weeks into this that I had full control of when I started them or when I stopped them or how long I had them. And knowing that gave me a lot more freedom for it, because before they were just happening in random times. Like one time I was in the corner and my two children were wrestling in the living room, and I'm standing in the corner having orgasms. But then once I learned I had control, that was really helpful, because it's just a surrender that I do, and it can start or stop. And so, for instance, my full transmission is about an hour to an hour and a half long. And when I'm in that, it does take me like into a trance-like state, and I'm fully a channel for the divine feminine source that we all are. And so in those states.
Yeah, so beautiful. And I can tell you, so Jenny comes to my living room and we're broadcasting this demo to my ecstatic birth practitioner community. I had two local clients come hold space, and women all over the world. And she just did like a little bit. It was like this much of her transmission. And I felt in my legs like electricity shooting down my legs into the bottom of my feet. It was really wild. And in the days after, she opened up a channel, like witnessing her in her orgasmic expression opened up a channel in my body. And in the days after, just walking around became so deeply pleasurable. Like I remember walking and the feeling of the bottom of my feet touching the ground. It's like, oh, so good. And I had a client in the UK who actually the next day emails me, oh my God, Sheila, I just came out of a 2-hour orgasm. Like, what? We stayed in touch with her. It was actually, it evolved into an 11-day kind of omni orgasmic experience where she was dipping in and out of this source, divine feminine, really, really pleasurable energy. So here's the thing that's so exciting to me about this is we don't, as women, really witness each other in orgasmic expressions. A lot of us learn about pleasure, about orgasming through our explorations with partners, maybe now through the internet and through the media. But this space of female to female expression, it really is not normal, in our world right now. But what I noticed in that, and Jenny and I have since done 2 full transmissions in a beautiful sacred circle of women, what I've noticed is that there's a knowing in our bodies that gets activated when we are in each other's presence. And I knew this from the birth world. I knew this from, teaching birth practitioners how to hold the tone for pleasure. And so what I wanted was for everyone to see Jenny's capacity and to realize, actually, I have that capacity in myself. And to begin just in that witnessing, just in that knowing, to begin to open to that capacity. And that's really what we've been seeing. And so, Jenny, I'm curious if you could talk about both personally and also within these transmissions, what are you noticing? Like, how do people react to your energy? What does it evoke? What does being in the presence of you in your full orgasmic flow, what does it evoke in others?
It's so vast, and it's very unique to each individual. I'll start with a man, because he was one of the first, besides the woman that was on the stage that Sheila got to witness, which, by the way, was about 3 weeks after mine started. I was in a relationship with a man, and he would travel and he would come back, and as soon as he would come, like, we would lay down next to each other, not even touching, and we would both start in this orgasmic state together. And it was just so expansive. All this magic was happening around us. Mystical things were happening. We would go to different planes together, like different dimensions, like mystically. It was just so magical. And sometimes we would sit in a restaurant across from the table, and he would just give me this look, and it would just start the whole thing. But I could keep it internal, so not everyone was there, but it was like our own little secret. And it was just, we didn't even have to speak to each other. And for women that I've, let's do the transmissions. So during the transmissions, I'm in this state, and so I'm like in an altered state. It takes me to this higher dimension. It seems like every woman, I'm not sure that everyone has expressed this, but it seems like every woman there has been taken to an altered state. So it's like you're in this uber feminine being state of receiving. And so this energy that's coming out of me, it's both visual, so you can see it, and also energetic. So it's like shaking up all your cells, it's shaking up um, all your habits and patterns and the things that aren't serving you anymore. So it can take someone from their personal growth journey from where they are today all the way to here if they're ready for it. It can take them to here if they're ready for it. It can take them to here if they're ready for it. And you don't know what you're ready for. I had no idea that when this came out of me, I had no idea that anything like this even existed or could exist. And it has been really expansive for the women at the transmission. Some of them have had child trauma healings. Some of them have had physical healings. Some of them have had like taking the burden of the world off their shoulders and just starting to feel the love for the planet again. Some of them have obviously had the orgasmic state activation. But it's been beautiful. Like during the transmission, I'll go and like there's no sexual there. The transmission is sacred. It's not sexual in any way, but it's erotic. So sometimes it feels that way. But I might go touch someone's foot and put some orgasm into their foot. I might call someone up to me and rest their ear on my heart to hear my heart. And when that happened, the woman later told me that her heart started beating the same way, the same pace as mine. So it was like we had one heart. And then I felt all her feelings from her childhood come through me that she had been storing and stuffing down, even feelings she didn't even know she had. And through me, they were coming through as ecstasy. Like I'm in ecstasy, but I'm wailing for her and screaming in ecstasy. And later she was like, oh my goodness, that like healed everything and I didn't have to feel anything. And I said, I know it's because I was feeling it for you. I wasn't taking it on and keeping it with me. I'm letting it through me in ecstasy. And it was just beautiful. So similar things like that have happened.
So I'm noticing that Kathleen just messaged me. She's on the call and she was at one of the transmissions and she'd like to share a bit about her experience. So Kathleen, if you don't mind, just go ahead and unmute. We'd love to hear about your experience.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, there you are. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Kathleen.
Yeah, so I'll say a couple of different things, and like what I think has been even more fascinating is what's happened since for me. When I got to Sheila's and we did the first transmission, and then it might have actually been on the integration call. Like my experience in the transmission was one of completely, I felt the energy really moving through my body. And I went in wanting what Jenny had basically. I was like, I'll take what she has, right? And I know better. My experience was completely my own. And I really felt a lot of high vibrational energy. And I do energy work um, as a profession, so I was pretty in tune with it. And I was like, wow, this is really powerful energy. And I was one that Jenny touched my foot, and I was like, well, that was interesting. And she happened to touch it right where I've had like an injury or a pain, and I didn't know it. And I feel, and I don't, this is my own intuitive nature, like she knew where to go, where healing was needed, like that this energy is healing. And she went right to that spot. Um, and then afterwards, I was sort of like, well, I didn't get exactly what Jenny got. So there was like some level of disappointment, but also this knowing of like, trusting that I got what I needed. And when we did our integration call, I remember it was really beautiful that you said, Jenny, like, your disappointment is really welcome here. Like everything is welcome. No matter what was showing up was welcome. And because it was just me not getting Jenny's hour and a half long thing. Like everything was amazing. But really what's been most amazing is what's unfolded since. And like I can't tell you already how different I feel right now on this call. Like I feel there's no way. I feel such activation in my body right now from reconnecting with you, Jenny, and this energy, and you, Sheila, and hi, Lisa. And like this I'm like, oh my God, I feel it now. But most significantly, about a month after that transmission, I did my own plant medicine ceremony. And I was really calling in some goddess energy of one of the goddesses that I work with. And I had, I mean, the most profound experience of my life where that, what you've talked about, Jenny, that connection of to universal love and universal everything. Literally, I was so moved by this. I called Sheila and I said, I think like I felt the universe like making love to me and
Mhm.
making love to the universe. And it was the most profound, deep within me connected state I've ever been in. And I got to a place of complete and the same thing, the orgasmic energy was moving through me for I don't even know how long, but at least an hour because I was in this state for a while. So I did get to that experience. But just the profundity of it, I can't even barely put words to it. It was so powerful. And and then about a month or so after that, a friend of mine I was leading a retreat with, and she does body work and cranial sacral work. And I haven't yet told you about this, Sheila, but we were leading a retreat and we had a little break. And she's like, can I do some body work for you? Because I was having a pain in the back of my ribs on one spot. And so she's doing a little hands on cranial work and she gets to that spot. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. And she's very skilled and she held it. And I suddenly started to go into, again, this orgasmic expression, releasing uncontrolled, and she was just like holding it, and it till it went through its arc and released. And then we were just both like, wow, oh my God. And it was again this just this thing, this again, this expression that's moving through me. And I need to start practicing putting better words to it. But it was just this incredible energetic orgasmic kind of release and experience. And now even just being on this call, I'm reminded even when I was hiking, I called in this goddess energy last week, and immediately, like I could feel my pussy start to light up and it kind of moves up through me. And so, I mean, all this to say that it's continuing to grow and evolve and expand. And just being on this call right now is just reminding me like, oh, right, like don't forget about it and don't think that it's not still growing. Like it really is. And every time I connect in with Sheila or with Jenny or with others in the group or with just that own intention within me, I am just surprised at what comes forth. And I'm just, oh, wow. And I mean, this was all, none of this ever happened to me before this. So I could go on, but that's like in a nutshell.
That's amazing, Kathleen. I'm so thrilled to hear all those things. I do have a question for you. Can you talk about the how the safety or being scared or all those pieces of those fallen in how they played out?
Safety in the transmission.
The whole thing, like safety during the transmission, and then when this is happening to you,
Oh,
just seemingly randomly.
I mean, because 100,000% safety in the transmission, like that was such a sacred and beautifully held container. Um, Thankfully, in the medicine experience, I was in my own space. Literally, I felt like I was in my a womb. I was in my own practice room. I literally had a sheet over my head and I felt like I was in a womb. And so, I was kind of in my own created container. When I was with my friend, again, I was in a very she was holding the space really. And the other times, like when I'm just hiking and this starts to come over me, it doesn't, it feels almost like it's, it's in calling in my power. And I almost feel like from rising from within that like safety isn't even on my radar, right? It's just like, oh my God, this thing is happening. And wow, I just feel empowered, honestly, from a very deep internal well, I think is what it feels like.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I also have that same experience and always have. This energy in me has made me ready to change the entire planet. Like, I'm talking to like the world's most powerful men in ways that I couldn't even have imagined talking to them in the first place before.
Yeah.
But in ways that are like holding them accountable and asking for what women need on the planet, and in a way that they're inspired, and it just brings up that and the power in me as well. So I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I can feel that just like radiating off. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ooh, that was so
Hmm.
juicy and delicious. I want to just kind of highlight that spot of safety and just say, like, in my experience, even in my own body, people move at whatever pace feels right and aligned for them. So for some people, it can be like an incredible, overwhelming, in the best possible way, awakening of that full flow. And it can also just be like bit by bit, step by step. That's been more of my experience. I move really, really slowly in my body. And I know a lot of that has to do with, what helps me feel safe. And yeah, I've had moments kind of like Kathleen was sharing of, oh, but I just want that. Like, why can't I just have that? Right. But then I remember like how much pleasure I got from walking in the days after Jenny's demo. And if I had gotten the whole experience right away, I wouldn't have had that. And I had another experience, Jenny, when I came to Colorado. We were preparing for one of the transmissions, and I was witnessing her being held in her expression. And she kept doing these things with her fingers. And afterwards, I was like, Jenny, what the heck were you doing with your fingers? She was like, I don't know. It just felt really good. I was like, oh, interesting. I start playing with my fingers, and within a day, I'm having orgasms out of my fingertips, out of the palms of my hands. So what's really beautiful about this is when we're together in these spaces, and it does, being in the presence of Jenny and her orgasmic, I'll call it a trance state, because I think you do go into an altered state, and your altered state, activated by your pineal gland and, our own internal DMT, like our bodies are contagious. We go into altered states too. And being in your presence and witnessing what's possible makes that possible for us. And from what I've seen over here, it's really exciting because yeah, you can awaken these places through breath work, through practice, but this is almost like you're fast forwarding your process 6 months to a year, depending on, what you're ready for. I want to back up for a second because we had a question in the chat that made me realize maybe we're moving like a little too fast. So Mary's asking, can we define transmission? What is this event? Like, what is all of this? So I want to back up for a second and just paint the vision like a little bigger and a little wider. We are energetic beings, right? And Jenny, feel free to jump in with any of what I say if you wanted to add, but we're energetic beings. Even though we're in physical form, we're energetic beings. We always have energy flowing to us, in us, out of us, through us, right? There's a lot of that happens unconsciously. A lot of that just happens, like how we run our energy is the result of our upbringing, our cultural conditioning, our generational wisdom, our ancestral wisdom, our primal, like there's just a whole combination of things that have us show up in this expression to flow our energy in this way. So, for those of you that are familiar with other types of energy healing modalities, Reiki is very, widespread and common. Energy healing in general is about challenging the patterns that you're running in your body and calling in patterns that are more aligned with your true self, letting go of patterns that aren't serving you, things like that. So what we're talking about here is actually energy transmission on the biggest, widest, vastest level, which is the transmission of orgasmic life force, divine feminine energy. That's what's flowing through Jenny's body when she describes her experiences. And the gatherings that people have been talking about, we had 2 transmission gatherings where, we had an intimate group, like 10 to 15 women in a room, and just witnessing Jenny and her expression. And some of the women in the room literally just stayed quiet and just witnessed her. Some of the women interacted in different ways. Some of them moved, some of them expressed whatever felt true in the moment. But this is not Like there's no hands-on work happening here, nothing. It's just pure energy. So Jenny comes into the room and she channels her orgasmic expression, which, as she said, lasts 60 to 90 minutes. And she goes so deep that it becomes an altered trance state. And we're just in that space, witnessing and receiving. And one of the most beautiful things about this is you get that energetic upgrade simply by witnessing, simply by being in the room, simply by feeling her presence. It's not only an in-person experience, because like I said, Jenny did a demo for my birth practitioners, which was virtual, and people did receive it all around the world in their own unique ways. But this is what's really exciting the two of us, and why we're entering into deeper collaboration around this, is when more women open to this, then, as Kathleen shared, as Rebecca shared, then you're opening more and more to your divine soul expression. And you can share that with other people consciously, but also unconsciously as you move through the world. So the more people awaken to this divine feminine life force energy within their own bodies, we're actually talking about rebirth. We're rebirthing ourselves, we're rebirthing the planet. And from the perspective of, physical childbirth, which I know some of you are very interested in, that's literally rebirthing the next generation, because they're coming in, if you have this capacity to open to this full omni-orgasmic flow, childbirth is not that scary, because you already have that capacity to receive, to dance with the divine in that way. And your babies can be born with that imprint of love, bliss, ecstasy, and pleasure. So this is really, really big. And Jenny, I'm wondering if you want to share from your perspective, like, what are the transmissions about? Like, why are you doing what you're doing?
My biggest purpose on the planet is to create equilibrium between women and men, and doing that through the reverence of the feminine. And when I am in the transmission and I am in that orgasmic state, I am the highest possible form of the feminine on the planet. And I'm here to show you that it's possible in every woman on the planet. And for this next transmission, there will be a man that will be holding space for me. Like, he will be tending to me while I'm in this state. So he'll be bringing water to my lips, because I can't even pick up a glass at that point. He'll be putting my hair up if I'm hot. But he will be tending to me. And even just watching that takes you to a whole nother level of what's possible between men and women. And whether you're gay, straight, bi, whatever, the masculine and feminine is in all of us. We each have masculine and we each have feminine. And when I'm in this state, I am purely 100% divine feminine energy. And to see a man, or the masculine, if you want to look at it that way, even though we have it all, to see the masculine holding and tending and in a devotional state to the divine feminine blows everything you have in your head about men or the masculine out of the water. Like, it opens new ways of living in all possibilities. So that's what I'm doing in the transition, is I'm showing women what's possible in you, and I'm showing men, because there will be a men's event too. I'm showing men what's possible in every woman and what their role is in that.
Yeah, so this is really big for me. My sacred purpose is aligned with women and babies, for you, bringing in that equilibrium. But really, it's about all of us showing up in our deepest alignment, in our fullest capacity, in our connection with the sacred, in our connection with our truth, and ultimately in our connection to our pleasure, because this pleasure exists in all of us. Like, bliss, ecstasy, orgasmic energy, it exists in all of us.
I want the whole world to feel this way. Imagine an entire planet of women that feel this way and look this way, like when Sheila was talking earlier, and just that glow she was having, just everyone on the planet feeling that way, because it extends to men as well, and they're actually part of this too.